Hello, nature lovers. Welcome to my YouTube channel, BioQuest and Life Lens. You are on to Zoologist Alan on this documentary on the midwife toad, a fascinating amphibian. Why are they fascinating? Because of some special features or characters they display. Join me as I take you through that journey. But before then, let's take a look at the scientific or zoological classification of the midwife toad. It belongs to the kingdom Animalia because they are in the animal kingdom, and it belongs to the phylum Chordata. Chordata means they possess a notochord at their developmental stages until they become adults, which forms a vertebral column or a backbone and their skeletal system. Then they belong to the class Amphibia. Amphibians are animals that live a double standard life. Amphi in Greek means double. So when you put that word in this definition, it means an animal that has a double life. It means they live both on land, which is terrestrial habitat, and also can live in water, which is aquatic habitat. And most times they carry out their reproduction in aquatic environment because that is environment that is viable for the production of their young ones through the laying of eggs in a jelly-like structure. They belong to the order Anura, then they belong to the family Alytidae. In science or in zoology, we add the letter IDAE, we add it to the original root name to give it the family name. Then they belong to the genus Alytes and the species obstetricians. When you put the two words together, they are called Alytes obstetricians. From the word obstetrics, the aspect of science or medical science that deals with the care for children. From the word obstetrics, we have obstetricians or pediatricians. That is where they got their specific name from and the species they belong to. Let's turn it on. Now, introduction to the midwife toad. They are unique amphibian species found in Western Europe. The scientific name, like I said earlier, is Alytes obstetricans, known for extraordinary parental care behavior because of the name obstetricans from the word obstetrics. They give absolute care to their eggs when it is being developed or formed. Then when it is developing, they carry it in pouches laid on their back. Special pouches or holes has been formed by nature on their back to be able to carry these eggs from one point to another for safety and until they are ready for hatching. Then they are native to mountainous regions of Spain, Portugal, and France, and some other parts of the globe. Now we're going to move to other interesting aspects of this particular toad, the midwife toad. It has a unique reproductive strategy. And what are those strategies? The male toads carry fertilized eggs wrapped around their hind legs. The hind legs is the back legs. That's the two legs at the rear. That is what we call hind legs. Then the ones in front is the fore limbs. So we have both fore limbs and hind limbs. Now, it carries the eggs for several weeks until ready to hatch. You can see that level of patience. Compare this to the nurses that gives us medical attention or treatment in the hospital. We call them midwives that studied midwifery in the medical sciences. And when you combine that word with the obstetricians from obstetricians or pediatrics, people who give care to young ones or children. So you can imagine how nurses gives medical attention in the hospital, working side by side with the doctors and other medical experts to make sure you are well or you recuperate faster from an ailment or an infection, or even when a surgery is carried out upon you. That is how this particular toad gives care to its young ones from the egg stage to the laying and to the hatching stage, with utmost concern and intentional, because they want to prevent them from predators and other harmful effects or adverse effects from the environment. That is why they got the name the midwife toad. Just like the midwives in the hospital gives absolute care to patients. Now, they keep the eggs moist and protected from predators, like I said in my earlier analysis or narration, because the egg has to stay viable until it's ready for hatching. Then at the end of the day, as the time goes on in the life cycle, they release tadpole into water when they are ready. So the egg will hatch on the pouches located at the back close to the hind legs, where they are kept and carried for safety. They are incubated for safety until it is hatched into the young tadpoles. Not until then, they don't release those eggs to the water. Other toads and frogs lay their egg at the shore of water bodies, Some of them lay eggs in between crevices of rocks or stones and leave it there in a jelly-like collection that protects them and keep them together. Sometimes they are being carried away by water waves that float or water current, but for this particular species of toad, the midwife toad, it has natural pouches or holes in the back close to the hind limbs that accommodates and carries this egg until they are ready for hatching. Is that not fascinating enough? Yes, it is fascinating. Okay, let's move further. Talking about its habitat and physical characteristics. The habitat refers to the natural dwelling place of an organism, where it dwells, where it is found per time at a given place. Now, small toad species typically 4 to 5 centimeters in length. Most of the times they don't exceed 4 to 5 centimeters. If by extension some might go up to 6 to say 7 centimeters for the biggest ones ever seen. Then they prefer rocky mountainous terrain with rocky streams. That's a habitat they look out for to brood their eggs in the pouches of the midwife toad. They are nocturnal and mostly terrestrial. By being nocturnal, it means they are active during the night. They are mostly active at night, and during the day they are at rest, preparing for the nightfall. And they are mostly terrestrial, means you'll find them mostly in the terrestrial or land habitat. Then when they need to brood and carry out other aquatic productive processes, they go back to water. Then the camouflage coloration helps them blend with rocky environments. Of course, look at their body striations and body coloring. The color matches or blends or mimic that of the environment so that they are not easily spotted by their enemies or predators. Then they are active during breeding season in spring and early summer. Springtime, when the rain is very heavy and downpours here and there, and the rain is sustained all through the rainy season, and just at the early rise or the early fall of summer, they are very active within that time in terms of reproduction. Now I'll take you further in this documentary. The ecological importance. What is their ecological importance? Simply put, what's their importance in the ecosystem, in the food chain or the food web that makes up the environment? They are an important part of mountain ecosystem food chain. So they form a food chain. Of course, they are predated upon by snakes, they are predated upon by vultures, they are predated upon by condors, they are predated upon by different snake species and other animals that seek after them for food in the food chain. They also eat small insects and invertebrates. That's in terms of their feeding preferences and feeding habits. They eat small insects and some invertebrates like earthworms and other bugs that you find within their habitat. They serve as prey for larger predators like snakes and birds, like I mentioned earlier. I've given examples. They help control insect populations in the habitat. How do they do this? Because they feed on insects, certain species of insects. They control the excessive or the influx in population of that particular insect so that it doesn't disturb that environment or ecosystem. Now, another thing is that they are indicator species for environmental health. Their presence also indicates that that particular environment is healthy to harbor and accommodate living species. Let's move on from here. What is their conservation status? That is to say, conservation status has to do with how preserved are they in their environment, how safe are they? Are they endangered species? Are they species that are encountering a lot of attack from predators that might reduce their population and decrease them and perhaps maybe lead to extinction? So currently listed as least concern by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, that's IUCN. It means the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Now, facing threats from habitat fragmentation, like when habitats break due to flooding, due to erosion, and other adverse effects in the environment. Climate change impacts their breeding environments. Of course, the incessant change in climate, the rising global warming, and other seasonal changes, if adverse, tend to affect their breeding patterns. Then some local populations experiencing decline because it's either they are being predated by predators, or they die due to physiological challenges or infection, or they die due to some natural disasters, or during migration, some of them get starved or they undergo famine and they die in the process. Then some local populations experience decline, as I've just explained. Conservation efforts focus on habitat preservation. So as environmental conservationists, scientists who do research on this particular species are looking for ways they can conserve this species so that they can live longer in their ecosystem, in their habitat, and continue to serve as a very important link in the food chain or the food web of their environment. Now let's take a look at this video to give us a clue of how they dwell in their habitat. Enjoy. Welcome back from that short view. I hope you enjoyed the view in its natural environment. So that gives you a short narration and life experience about the life of the midwife toad in its natural environment. So at this point in time, I want to say thank you for viewing and your patience this far. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel at Alan Alpha 7087 and do click the notification button so that you will not miss important videos of this nature in my subsequent upload. Then I need you to also hit the like button and drop your comments, your queries, and your questions. I'll be on standby to attend to them. Thank you so much. Bye for now from Zoologist Alan.